Let's get right into the central paradox of healthcare philanthropy. Right now, high donor capacity is actively colliding with the lowest donor continuity in the entire nonprofit sector. You are bringing in individuals with incredible means, yet keeping them at the lowest rates we see anywhere. It's a fundamental tension that shapes literally every portfolio in this space. Look closely at the constraint on the right side of your screen. Healthcare runs a donor retention rate of 38.45%. That's more than 16 points below the cross-sector average of 54.73%. But then look at the left side. Gift size, online giving, and new donor acquisition all run well above the sector average. So what does this tell us? The constraint is clearly not capacity, it's continuity. Let's break down exactly what the data shows and, more importantly, where the structural leverage lives. Section 1. Fixing the leaky bucket and the first-time donor bottleneck. First to second gift conversion sits at just 17.51% for healthcare. Compare that to the sector average of 25.84%. To put that into perspective, that means roughly 1 in 6 first-time healthcare donors actually gives a second gift. Across the broader sector, it's 1 in 4. The drop-off is incredibly steep, and it happens immediately after that initial gift. This represents a massive loss in potential lifetime value before the relationship even has a chance to begin. Now, pair that low conversion rate with this number, 49.09%. This is a staggering new donor acquisition rate. Healthcare is perpetually filling the top of the donor base with grateful patients and community members. You're bringing them in at one of the highest rates in the entire sector, but the data clearly shows you aren't keeping them. It's a classic leaky bucket scenario. This churn forces your team to constantly replace lost revenue rather than actually building upon it. Section 2. Mechanics of retained relationships and why the window already exists. Look at this expansion rate of 102.29%. Honestly, this reframes the entire problem. It means retained healthcare donors actually give more year over year. Healthcare donor relationships are not weak once they're properly established. The issue is simply that too few donors enter that retained pool in the first place. The real work is widening the door, not strengthening the room. The timing data backs us up perfectly. When healthcare donors do come back, they do so at a pace of 108.5 days. That is exactly the sector average, so the engagement window already exists and it works. The task here is capturing more volume inside that 108-day window, rather than letting these grateful patients slip right back out of your ecosystem. Section 3. Where the leverage lives and the structural answer to episodic giving. Recurring giving sits at just 16.32% in healthcare, compared to nearly 21% across the sector. A recurring program is the single structural lever that moves retention, frequency, and lifetime value at the exact same time. It systematically converts an event-triggered episodic donor into an ongoing partner. This creates predictable revenue and completely eliminates the need to reacquire that exact same donor every single year. And look at the reality of donor behavior right here. Healthcare donors are already entirely comfortable giving meaningful amounts online at a $137.13 average. Because your donors already give high online amounts, moving them to a recurring upgrade is a much smaller behavioral leap than it is in other more male-heavy sectors. Think about it. A donor prepared to make a digital transaction of that size is highly receptive to a monthly commitment if they are simply prompted. You don't need to teach them to give online, you just need to shift frequency. This is exactly where the most compounding happens for the absolute least amount of effort. Section 4. The lifetime value picture. Connecting generosity to the bottom line. A lifetime value of $1,868.68 is actually the lowest in the sector. But again, it's really not a capacity problem. The average gift sizes are very strong at over $151. This gap exists solely because of low retention and a weak frequency rate of just 2.83 gifts per year. That's compared to over 4 for the sector average. Move frequency and retention up, and lifetime value moves right along with them. You already have the high gift sizes. You just need the structural repetition. This breakdown brings us to the resilience question. Right now, nearly 69% of revenue comes from major donors. Meanwhile, the mid-level tier is unusually thin at under 20%. Heavy major donor concentration naturally creates high volatility from one fiscal year to the next. Building a stronger mid-level layer represents the absolute clearest diversification opportunity for a healthcare portfolio today. Finally, Section 5, closing the generosity gap and the core strategic shift required to capture this value. Healthcare's strongest gains will not come from chasing a single metric. They come from closing the gap between generosity and continuity. The hard part is actually done. The donors are giving meaningfully. The work now is keeping them in the relationship. Applying a responsive fundraising framework to connect with the right message at the right time will systematically close this gap. You just have to start where the biggest gap is and let those gains compound. So, I'll leave you with this single question to consider for your strategy moving into the next fiscal year. Are you building a lasting partnership, or are you just starting over every 12 months?